2023 Independence Township Zoning Board of Appeals. Call the meeting to order. If you would like to join me in a pledge of allegiance to start the meeting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Brian, if we could have a roll call, please.
Mr. Auger.
Present.
Mr. Epping.
Here.
Mr. Galley.
Here.
Mr. Charles.
Here.
And Mr. Zurich.
Here. Great, we are all present. Next, we'll have a review of the agenda. As we look at the agenda, I'd like to make one change in item number 4. The address was inadvertently, I guess we have a typo in the address for case number 2023-018. The address is actually 9356 Ortonville Road, 9356 as opposed to 9656 Ortonville. So I'd suggest that we make that update.
I'll so move that motion.
Okay.
Amend the agenda.
So we have an amended agenda. Any other amendments, gentlemen? Changes? If not, we'll have a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
Support.
Motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. At this point in our meeting, before we get into our business, we've got an opportunity for public comment. So if anybody in the audience or online, it doesn't look like anybody else is online, anybody in the audience has anything to say that is not, anything related to anything that is not on the agenda. So if anybody's here tonight that just wants to make an announcement or bring anything to the board's attention, now would be the time. Seeing none, I will close the public comment. We have no unfinished business, and so we'll move right into new business. Tonight with new business, we have 6 cases, a number of cases. What we'll do is I'll read each case into the record. So in other words, I'll give it the case number, the applicant, and we'll explain what variance or deviation is being sought. At that point, we'll invite the applicant up to the podium. If you could start by giving us your name and your address, and then just kind of walk us through your application. What's your address, what it is you're seeking to do, why you're seeking to do that. Really, our board's objective is to understand your case, to understand any impacts it has and why that variance is being sought, and what might be unique to your situation, your property, or your case that would make it different than and therefore warrant a deviation or a variance from our ordinance. At that point, we'll all have an opportunity on the board to ask questions. We'll open it up to the public for any public comment, any neighbors, anybody in the audience that wants to comment on it. We'll then bring you back up to the lectern and ask any more questions, and ultimately our goal is to make some type of a motion based on your application. So again, anybody that does speak, whether you're in the audience or an applicant, please come up to the lectern and give us your name and address. And also anybody that speaks, if you could add your name and address to the sign-in sheet so that when we write out the minutes, we get the spelling of your name accurately. Miss anything, Alan?
I think you covered it.
Cool. All right, with that, I would like to call case number 23-015, Simon Sun, the petitioner, requesting a variance from section 5.06A4, table 5.06, 2, in order to permit an existing accessory structure on the property next to an existing garage. And this is at 5053 White Lake Road, which is in the R1B suburban residential district. Mr. Sun, you in the audience? Good evening.
Hi, I'm Amy Sun. I'm Simon Sun's daughter.
Good evening, Amy. So again, if you could just give us your name one more time and your address, and then let us know what's going on.
Amy Sun, 5053 White Lake Road, Clarkston. And so we're looking for an interpretation of Article 5, Section 5.06 of the required 10-foot setback for accessories. We just purchased this property in June of 2022. And so this, it's like a little shed that's next to the garage, has been on, it's recorded in the township property file for 10 years now. It was built in 2013. There was a permit issue on this before, but it was closed in 2019 with a no violation. And so when we purchased the property, the title was clean. We checked the records of the township. There's been no change to it since then. And we talked to the neighbor that's next to us. As you can see from like the picture, the neighbor's very, very far. They can't see it at all. It doesn't affect them in any way. And they had texted us saying that they have no issue with this structure and they're not pursuing it in any way. Our neighbor across the street had actually left us a note saying that he would support us and that he would be here. I don't think he's here, but he said that he supports it. And we just wanted to point out, like, that the property taxes on the property has gone up from $3,000 to $8,000 this year. And so my dad has paid the property taxes on it for last year. And I think that's it.
That's it, great. So we're listing it as a shed. I went out to the house today, and it's some type of a structure. It looks like it's actually attached to the house. It wasn't part of the original garage, but it's somewhere between a shed and a garage addition,
Yeah,
however
it's
we
like
want to
next to the
classify that.
garage. Yeah.
And do you know, I couldn't tell in the application, you've got a diagram, but I couldn't read it. You know, from the wall to the property line, how many feet is it?
It's like, it's on the property
It's
line,
essentially on the property line?
just
okay.
within the property line.
Okay. Does not, as far as we know, it does
It
not,
does not go into the neighbor's property line
does not
at
go
all.
into the neighbor's property, but for all intents and purposes, it comes up to the property line, you think?
Yes.
Okay. So, I'm just getting to it here. So in the R1B zoning district, really why we're here is in the R1B zoning district, the ordinance requires any property or any structure to be set off 10 foot from the property line. In this case, probably more or less the original garage met that 10 foot if this addition roughly is about 10 foot. So that addition, which predates your ownership of the property, encroaches into that 10-foot setback is essentially why we're here, just for the record. Okay, thanks. Before I bring it to the board, Brian, do you have any background from a township's point of view?
Yeah, I'm gonna, Mr. Moran, our building officials here, I'd prefer to have him speak on the fact that this was previously approved by a previous administration, and now here we are tonight, and why we're here tonight. So,
That'd be helpful, thanks.
yeah, so.
Good evening, gentlemen. David Moran, Building Director, Building Official. This case, an issue with this property was brought to my attention earlier this year. And in researching it, there was an original structure at 5053 White Lake Road with no garage. That garage that is there now was permitted in 2009, and it was inspected and approved, a 676 square foot garage. The structure that is before you tonight was never permitted. It actually came to the attention of the previous administration as a code enforcement for working without permits. So this structure was never permitted, inspected, or approved. Had it been applied for as a building permit, we probably wouldn't even be sitting here today talking about it. But it was built without required permits, and it is encroaching on the lot line. It's virtually right on the property line. So when it came to my attention, I researched it, and the current owners, unfortunately, are dealing with it now because the decision back in 2019 was that they would be required to go before the board. These were documented in the enforcement of this property. Within 2 months of that request to go before the ZBA for this type of variance, the previous administration building official warranted that and stated on record that it was no violation. Well, being the current authority having jurisdiction and the building official, I can't ignore that. I rescinded that on our records in BSNA. So that's where we're at today. I did meet the current owners out there a couple times and suggested some things and gave them the options. And one of the options is to come before the Zoning Board of Appeals. But that's where we're at this point. So this current structure that is before you tonight was never permitted, never inspected, never approved. And I rescinded the previous order of no violation, and that's how we got to this point.
So in 2019, the new structure was built and was identified, and the initial advice was for the previous owner to come to the ZBA.
Correct.
But whatever transpired administratively, somehow the previous officials administratively approved it without a ZBA.
It's all the note he
Variance,
made in there on the record as part of this enforcement closure, no violation. That's all it says.
Got it.
And clearly, there was a violation, so
That was
That's why-
2019.
that was 2019.
Okay. As a building inspector and a building official, have you had an opportunity to look at the structure?
Yes.
And determine it, at least structurally, does it appear to be
It's a
sound?
viable structure. It looks well-built. It's functional. I have no problem with it,
Okay.
the way it is currently.
Other than that's onto the property line?
Correct.
From your estimation, does it appear to exceed the property line and encroach
No.
into the neighbors?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it. Did it before?
Well, yeah.
Right.
Can we clarify, the current owner for sure did not build this? We know that.
We know that.
We know that.
Correct.
Any other questions for Dave?
No, not for Dave. I
Other
think
questions
he's
for Dave?
explained it pretty good.
I'll be here.
Thank you. With that, gentlemen, I'll open it up for questions. We can bring the applicant back up for additional questions.
I have, being a real estate broker, I think they have an out on this, but I'm not an attorney, okay? They would have to seek advice from an attorney. But if it wasn't disclosed that this addition was not put on without a permit, that's one of the items in the disclosure sheet that the previous owner has to fill out himself. No help from anybody else, has to fill out. They have to buy property to make 10 feet. I don't know what the board's gonna do, but if they have to buy property from the neighbor to give them a side yard, or if they have to tear it down, there might be some relief, because I'm not for sure, but I think it's a felony for not stating if work was done without a permit on your disclosure sheet. But, that's not.
Can we clarify that with the family? Amy, can you help us understand, do you know what a disclosure statement is?
Yeah, I looked at the disclosure statement. They did disclose that there was some work done without a permit, but that's why they had directed us to this, like the no violation thing from 2019. And I've actually looked into, we've contacted lawyers, we've looked at tearing it down, we've looked at all of the options. And so my dad had bought the property from the owner, who was also the broker and also the title company, so it's quite sketchy. And so we don't really want to go that route, because I don't think we can get anything back from them. But that's what we had contacted a lawyer, and they said, let's do this process. Otherwise, I mean, we're gonna have to spend considerable amounts of money. Either, we've looked at tearing it down, it costs quite a bit of money, and my dad says like the pollution, it's going to a landfill, like the structure has already been there. And if we were to pursue like our title company and the previous owner, it's gonna be this whole thing. I think they're quite a large company.
I think you've done the right thing so far.
We're here, I mean, the neighbors have all been sweet, everyone has been really nice in the township, so we thought we'd come here first.
Understood, thank you. Jim, Brian, any questions or thoughts or comments?
Unfortunately, I think the petitioner has been thrust into a situation that they really can't do much about. And it's not of their doing. The location of where this is, being at the extreme westerly end of the neighbor's property, the little triangle there, it certainly doesn't pose any hardship to the neighbor to the north. Granted, it's a situation that it was approved with, it was built without a permit. But again, this was not done by the petitioner, and I think they've been thrust into a tough situation.
kind of transparent about it.
I guess kind of along the same lines as Jim's comments, I mean, I respect the current building official doing the proper thing and making it right, but also the homeowners did the right thing and checked out the comments on the disclosure, came to the township. It's in the record as nothing's wrong with this structure. I don't know, I don't think they should be penalized. Have you received any comments other than what the petitioner has represented, Mr. Ottman?
No, and the comments I did receive, actually, nothing related to the actual variance request. It was related to other underlying things with a neighboring property owner that has other issues, not necessarily with this family at all.
Okay,
It was with, I think, the other property, so.
okay.
Oh,
Go
do
ahead,
we
Jim.
know if this thing is over the line or not? I mean, if we were to, let's say, approve it, but it's actually encroaching, I don't think that would be a correct thing to do.
Because when this house was built, they didn't require the foundation to be certified that it's at 10 foot or
Right.
further.
So I guess, well, Mr. Ottman's looking at that. In summary of what I was gonna say is I don't think the current homeowner should be penalized for what a previous building official did.
Right.
And from the sounds of it, all the adjacent property owners are on board with it.
My question is, someday in the future, if somebody surveys this and it's 1 inch over, where do we stand, or what happens?
Messes up the title work real bad.
You know, I've done real estate transactions with encroachments, and it's noted on the survey, and
We
to
have
buy
a
the
survey.
property, you sign off on it.
We have the survey and
You-
it's
Could you
not
come up to the?
Oh, you
Yeah,
have a
it's just,
survey.
it's really hard to see, that's why.
Yeah.
We have it surveyed and it's not over the line. And we've talked to the next door neighbor and they said that, we've even asked if we could just buy the 10 feet and they said that they're not looking to sell it, but they have no issue with us having structure. We have that message.
When was it
the
surveyed? Do you
petition.
know what date
This is a Keith survey.
It's a key.
It looks like .1 to the property line and .2. .1 at the front end and then .2
Point.
at the
It's
back.
in the-
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
Keith's
It's
a
just really
respected
hard to
outfit.
see.
If it was encroaching, they'd note it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I see .1, okay.
And it
We
probably
did
goes,
There-
everything-
and
we
it-
did
and there-
everything we could.
There's a note where the orange circle is. I should actually go to that page. Where that orange circle is on the survey, it says, house clears property line by .1.
okay.
And then it says house clears property line by .2 at the back end, that corner.
I see.
It's just really hard to see.
Yeah, as I blow it up, I see it now. At this point, I'll ask, does anybody in the audience would like to speak on this application at all? Brian, doesn't look like we have anybody else online?
No.
Seeing no comments, I'll bring it back to the board for questions or consideration. I guess my thoughts, I hadn't really shared those, is I think it's clear that based on the survey data, the Keefe survey doesn't appear to approach. It wasn't, certainly wasn't, predates the current owners, and so they've been transparent in trying to resolve it. And I look at the adjacent property, we don't have the neighbor in, although there is a text message that appears to be from the neighbor that doesn't seem to have an objection. And even if that neighbor was to totally maximize their building envelope, because of the shape of that property, that
Yeah, can't do
triangle,
anything.
they really couldn't build anywhere near this. And because their house is so significantly to the front of the lot, this house is to the back, even if that neighbor was to triple the size of their house, I still don't think there'd be any impact to that neighbor's, expanded structure, or building envelope for that. So with that, I
I'll
don't,
make a motion in this case of 23-015. I think this is classified under practical difficulty not caused by the present owners. I feel that they've done everything that they could do even before they bought the property to check it out, which a lot of people don't. And I would approve the cases presented.
Second.
Appreciate it. So we have a motion to approve essentially the location of the existing structure.
Exactly.
Brian, if we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Auger,
Yes.
Mr. Epping,
Yes.
Mr. Galley,
Yes.
Mr. Sharl,
Yes.
Mr. Zurich.
Yes.
Great. Well, congratulations. You're, appreciate you doing the due diligence with the township. Brian, is there anything further that the applicants need to do, or?
We're gonna close out the enforcement case at this point, so,
Thank you so much.
yeah.
Appreciate your time. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Now you know the importance of a building permit.
Yeah.
No, but thank you guys.
Thank
We
you.
love we love the neighborhood. We love this.
It's a beautiful piece of property.
Thank you.
Moving on, I will call case number 23-016, Todd Beck, petitioner requesting a 35-foot variance from section 4.09D in order to construct a new pole barn at 9330 Ortonville Road, which is an R1R residential zoning district of our town. Good evening.
How you guys doing tonight?
Good, how are you?
So, my name is Jacob Beck. I am Todd's son. My address is 9330 Ortonville Road. So yeah, we're just trying to get a pole barn built, and it's a non-conforming lot in zone R1R. So it's at 165 foot across instead of the required 200 foot. We're just under 1,300 foot long, 5-acre lot. I think it's about 50 foot. So it's a 40 foot wide pole barn, leaving 75 foot from the neighbor to the north and 50 foot to the neighbor from the south. We just want to build a pole barn. My dad just recently bought a tractor and has a bunch of implements to take care of the yard, and a grapple, backhoe, all this stuff, and he'd like to keep it out of the weather all year long. Also inherited a boat from his dad who just passed, my grandpa, and we'd like to store that in there and keep that out of the implements. It was one of his possessions that growing up fishing on together. And he has a trailer he'd like to keep protected from the elements as well that he got with the tractor.
Okay, great.
So that's
So-
pretty much it.
What's interesting about this is certainly within the R1R, the property, a pole barn is permitted within this zoning district. The setback, the minimum side setback is 50 foot, and your smaller setback is 50 foot, and your larger is 75. So it's not even an ordinance or a request for a variance for a side setback. It's really a variance, almost, I think, what we might call housekeeping here, that in this zoning district, probably since that lot was developed, we have a 200-foot minimum. Your lot is 165. So really the variance here, in order to get a permit, we like to clear up any deviations or variances. And so really what we're considering tonight here is allowing a lot of record, a non-conforming lot of record, 165 foot wide, where it should be 200. So as long as you build the pole barn no closer than 50 foot to that southern property line, you'll be within the ordinance. We're just here tonight to consider essentially putting the non-conforming lot of record, establish that
Yeah.
paperwork. So, is there any questions up here, guys?
Have you had it surveyed?
We have not.
There's been discrepancies along Ortonville Road in that particular area when they've come before us on where they thought property lines were and where they actually were. So I was just.
Yeah, we paid for this from Oakland County here, and that's what that picture is. So
Okay.
I was kind of thrown into this last minute because he's a pilot, so he happened to be flying today.
So I think, you know, what the advice there is, and it's not unusual for our board to make it part of our motion, is that when you do go to build the pole barn, especially because you're right at that 50 foot,
Yeah.
is to know very specifically where all four of your property corners are, and know where that is so that you'll know specifically. Sometimes we think our property line is where a fence is or where we've always mowed to, and it may be several feet in either direction.
Right, yeah.
We don't want you before us again.
Yeah. So perhaps tonight, if we have this
Yeah.
motion, that'll be included, that you'd have to have the property surveyed so that you know specifically where the property line is before
Okay.
you set that new building. Brian?
Just so the board knows, I did research this property and it did get a variance for the garage, the detached garage, but for some reason at that time, lot width wasn't recognized. And, you know, since I've been working with the ZBA for, 10 years now, I really think it's important to clean up the record, so that way if the Becks decide to sell, title companies won't flag that as non-conforming.
Makes
And
sense.
this whole plat is, all of them are 165. So, as you know, we've seen a couple, I think, already.
Yeah, a
And I
couple
think
more
we're-
tonight.
A couple more. So, maybe we'll, in another year, we'll have them all cleaned up, so.
I doubt that.
Yeah, I know.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Then I'll open it up to the public. Is there anybody here tonight that would like to speak on case number 23-016? Seeing none, I will bring it back to the board for consideration.
Guess I'll just go ahead and make a motion in, case number 23-016, petitioner Todd Beck, requesting a 35-foot variance from section 4.09, table 4.09, in order to construct a new pole barn at 9330 Ortonville Road. I motion that we approve, the variance. The barn is placed in an optimal position for this lot, and the 35-foot width is record-keeping because the lot is non-conforming.
Support.
We have motion, we have support. Brian, if I could ask as the person who made the motion, if you'd consider adding the requirement to have the property surveyed before, or in unison with the building permit?
Yes, amend to require building placement.
And
On
I
footings.
support that amendment.
So we have an amended motion and support. Brian, if we could have roll call, please?
Mr. Epping?
Yes.
Mr. Galley?
Yes.
Mr. Charles?
Yes.
Mr. Zurich?
Yes.
Mr. Auger?
Yes.
Where'd you go? Terrific. Thanks. Congratulations or good luck. Just work with the building department for the permit for the structure as well as any details you might need with the survey.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on. We will move to case number 23-017, Michael Dahl, requesting a variance from section 5.06 in order to construct an accessory structure. Must be coming close to winter. Everybody needs an accessory structure. At the principal, in this case, in front of the principal structure at 8620 Pine Knob Road, which is also in the R1, R rural residential section. Good evening.
Good evening. So I'm Mike Dahl from 8620 Pine Knob Road. The request here today is for an auxiliary building, pole barn, to be built in front of the primary residence is the variance. The reason for this is I can't really tell on the picture that you're showing, but it's a topographical image of the property. And from a line where you see the dark trees behind the house and where the proposed pole barn would be, there's a very significant drop-off in the property. And just beyond that, there's a very steep incline back up from the property. So as a result, we're proposing to have the pole barn put in front of the house where there's a nice open area that's relatively level. That given position, it is not visible from any of the neighboring properties. So to the west of the property, there's roughly 500 feet of pine trees. To the south of the property, it's all wooded until Abington Road. And obviously to the east, there's 1,300 feet of woods. The one house to the north, there's a fence. The house is quite low. It is not visible. The pole barn would not at all be visible from the house up to the north. So we are requesting the variance to put the pole barn in front of the property.
Great. And you've got a few other structures, or at least one or one and a half other structures on the property. I think you indicate that those would come down when this goes
Those will
up.
be removed. There is I guess it's a horse stall barn right where the proposed position of the pole barn is. That will come down. That is a very unstable building, not fit for
So
anything. And there's another structure, small shed that will come down also. So we're trying to clean up the property.
Say that again, there's the older barn-shaped roof
Fix it,
structure that your new structure's going right at that spot?
Close to it. It's a little bit behind it. You can almost see it sticking out from the blue box there. But
See
that structure needs to come down.
Okay.
There's
And
holes in the roof, holes.
So that's the structure I saw right here?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you looked at the property, you'd see that's not a very stable building.
And clean up your driveway.
That the driveway needs a lot of work.
Great. Any additional questions from the board?
They about in line with the neighbor's barn on the left, north side of you, correct?
About, yes, it'd be, that one is also in front of the house, yes,
Because that's in front of their structure also.
correct.
You have a beautiful group of turkeys out there.
There are a lot of them.
So when I was there, I mean, there's some unique circumstances with this property. Obviously, it's a very, very long property. The house is also set back well beyond the front setback line, making it, in addition to the topography right behind the house, so making, if the house was perhaps set up closer to the front setback line, then essentially the proposed building could be almost in that same location and it'd be either in line with or behind the front of the house. I also drove down Abington Park with the idea that, boy, are we gonna see something here? And because of the topography, certainly with the trees out this time of year, I don't think you see this property at all, or wouldn't see this building at all from Abington Park. And I think maybe notably more, if it was to move behind the house, then it'd be up behind some existing homes. Here it's essentially against common area within Abington Park, so it's not immediately adjacent to any existing home. So it seems well positioned, both based on the difficulties of the property itself as well as its minimal impact on the neighbors.
Yeah, I think this is a flag parcel that probably wouldn't be allowed anymore, correct?
Correct.
So it's a non-conforming lot, and from the looks of the gradient lines, that hole's probably 30 feet deep or so, plus minus.
It's pretty significant, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it goes down quick and comes up quick, so there's really no way you can get toward the rear of the property. Then you would be cutting down vegetation and
Right.
putting it behind existing homes, so I think for the property in the situation, it's optimally placed in the proper spot.
Let me ask, is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this case? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the applicant or to the board for questions or consideration.
I don't think anywhere is written here for the height of the barn, but the permit will take care of that it's within spec of the height, right?
Correct. Yes, correct.
What materials are you thinking about using?
Just a steel barn, probably.
Metal?
Yeah, metal roof, metal siding.
And no other neighbors complained.
I did speak to the neighbor to the north, once I explained where it was, you know, basically, essentially in the same location as the old barn that's there. She had no issue with it. So,
Mr. Chairman, in the case of 23-017, Michael Dahl petitioner, a variance from section 5.06A4 in order to construct an accessory structure in front of a principal structure at 8620 Pine Knob Road. I move that we approve the petition. Because this is the most logical place to put this, considering the hardships of the natural terrain.
Thank you, Jim. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Support.
Motion of support. Brian, if we could have a roll call, please?
Mr. Galley,
Yes.
Mr. Charles,
Yes.
Mr. Zurich,
Yes.
Mr. Auger,
Yes.
Mr. Epping.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you. Okay, moving along. Case number 23-018, Louis Van Hoot, petitioner requesting a 30.6-foot side yard variance from section 5.06A in order to permit a detached garage at, again, based on our correction, at 9356 Ortonville Road, also in the R1R Rural Residential Zoning District. Good evening.
Good evening, gentlemen.
And for the record, I guess this is next door to Mr. Beck's.
That's correct.
Okay, good.
We're rooting for each other.
There you go. But
My
tell us
name
about
is
you.
Lou Van Hout,
Thank you, Lou.
and the address is 9356 Ortonville Road. And I'm here today because I want to build a garage that I would keep a vehicle in and some shovels to keep them out of the elements. And basically what's going on is I have a non-conforming lot of the 165 feet which we know is a theme this evening. I don't have the 200 feet that's required. Also, I want to build my garage closer to the property line than the 50-foot offset required, so therefore I'm requesting a 30.6-foot side yard variance. In addition to all of this, I'd like to have the non-conforming lot record corrected, as we've been trying to do with the other lots this evening as well.
Great. Now, Brian, if I'm correct, based on the notification, this must have already gone through that process?
Correct. Yeah.
So you already are an official non-conforming lot, so that 200-foot is certainly applicable, but for whatever reason, historically, this property has already gone through that, so that variance sits with your property and with the township, so that's already
Covered.
taken care of. So really, the one variance that you're seeking is that side yard setback. Again, in this district, it should be 50 foot. You're asking for 30.6 feet, meaning that you're requesting that that new garage be constructed no closer than 19 and a half feet from the property line, from the southern property line. And so unlike some of the previous applications, it's not a pole barn. You've provided photographs. Is this, you know, a representative of the barn that, or the garage that you're gonna be building?
That's the actual garage I'll be building. I've taken it down. I'm gonna put it back up
From this property, or just?
From a
you-
different
you moved-
property.
You moved it here.
with an extra wide load permit
There you go.
across the highways of Michigan.
Okay. So this is the garage, one-car garage. It'll be no closer than 19 and a half foot from your property line. And in the documentation that you provided, it looks as though it'll be not entirely behind the house, but certainly not in front of the house. Your home is fairly close to Ortonville Road. This will be towards the back of your home, going back east into the property.
Correct.
Looking at the plot, your house sits quite a bit farther back than the both adjacent neighbors, correct?
My house sits back further.
Farther off the road, the main road.
No.
Let's see here.
Brian, take a look at, I think that
Oh,
those
do we have the
photographs,
wrong,
take a look at
would that be the wrong
the
address?
plot plan. Yeah, scroll up a few documents to this document. I think you'll see the accurate survey.
So I'm just trying to, would that be this? No, it wouldn't.
Yeah, I think if you go back to Mr. Beck's application, and his photograph, it'd be the neighbor immediately north. And I think the two homes are almost in line with each other.
So the wrong overhead is in the other one.
Is in Mr. Van Hoot's, right, is the,
So, we're talking about this one here?
yes.
I have a question. Why aren't you putting it more in line behind the existing garage that's there?
There is no existing garage. That's number one. There is no existing garage. Number two,
Am I thinking of?
This is the one, Alan, that the address was
Yeah.
incorrect in
But
the,
I found that out when I was up Ortonville Road.
okay.
Um,
There, yeah, this is a standalone home with no garage?
correct.
Hey, go ahead, you were gonna.
I was answering
Uh-huh.
Alan's question there.
Yep.
Did you have any more questions?
I got three cases on Ortonville Road tonight. And yours was, the address was
We just did a lot of
different, so when I was out there, I took pictures, so let me go ahead and go on with it.
I think maybe I can cut to the chase on why I'm gonna put the garage, or why I want to put the garage where I've located it here, is I have a huge hill behind the house. It must be a 20-foot drop from top to bottom, and there's no other really good place to put the garage close to the house where it would be reasonably accessible. The north side of the property, north side of the house is a septic field, can't put it there. Can't put it behind the house, there's a big hill there. And I don't wanna put it in the back 40, cause it's too far away.
You have a motorhome in your driveway, correct?
Currently I do, yes.
Okay, all right.
Currently I do, correct.
With respect to the power lines, Where is this structure gonna go?
Quite a bit to the west of the power lines.
To the west.
In front of them.
West would be toward Ortonville Road from the power lines. Yeah, it won't really come too close to the power lines. It's a pretty small garage. Not too deep.
And we have no issues with neighbors?
Brian, have we received any additional correspondence?
No.
I don't ask at this point, is there anybody in the audience tonight that would like to speak on this case, case number 4, Mr. Van Hoot? Hearing none. I guess what I would like to point out, just as we did with Mr. Beck, is that it's important in terms of a survey. 19.5 feet is very specific, and so if it was 19 foot as opposed to 19.5 foot, you would then technically have to come back to us and ask for another variance if it was built a foot or 2 foot or anything too close to the road. So we really are very serious in terms of having the property surveyed. Perhaps if you guys are doing as neighbors, you could coordinate that together. But then to ensure that we know specifically where the property lines are, and then specifically where 19 and a half foot or greater, it could be 20 foot, but it can't be any closer than 19 and a half foot from the property line, so that you make sure that it's built, as we've discussed tonight.
So I'll work with Jake on making
Perfect.
sure we know exactly where that line is, at least on my south side.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what this is here.
Okay. Any other
I
questions?
guess I'd like to make a proposal here in case number 23-018 for Mr. Louis Van Hoot, that we grant his 30.6 foot side yard variance from section 5.06A4, table 5.062, just given the hardship of the shape of the property, and it looks like a very nice structure, and we would like to add in this request that you survey the property and the location of the garage as the foundation's put in, so you can guarantee that you're at least at the 19 and a half foot or less than the 30.6 variance that you're asking for.
Sounds good.
We have a motion. We have support.
I'll support.
A motion and support. Brian, if we could have roll call, please.
Mr. Charles?
Yes.
Mr. Zurich?
Yes.
Mr. Auger?
Yes.
Mr. Epping?
Yes.
Mr. Galley?
Yes.
Terrific. Look forward to seeing your new garage.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Please continue to work with the building department to make sure we've got everything we need.
Will do.
Thank you. Moving along. Case number 23-019, John Simlick, petitioner, requesting 2 variances. The first, a 29-foot width variance from section 4.90D, and then a 35-foot side yard variance from section 5.06 in order to build, you guessed it, a construction of a pole barn at 9741 Ortonville Road, which is also in the R1R rural residential. So this is the third one on Ortonville Road. This is up just slightly north and on the west side of the street.
Correct.
Great. So, good evening.
Good evening.
Did I pronounce your name
My name is
correctly?
John Simlick.
Simlick, thank you.
I live at 9741 Ortonville Road, and I'm proposing to build a pole barn. It would be a 35-foot side setback, which would be 15 feet from the property line. The reason my lot is non-conforming is due to the 50-foot setbacks. It is only 171 feet wide, a little bit wider than the last two. So I'm requesting to put this in this location due to a few reasons. One, future drain field. I need a location for that, because the current one is put in 65, and Burlington County, I need another location. So back in the back is pretty good sandy soil to put another one in. Also, my grade kind of starts sloping off in the back. If I cut a whole bunch of trees down, put the building further back in the center, I'll be having to bring a lot of fill in, and then I could get runoff to the neighbors. Right now, the location of this barn sits on level ground.
Great, so you've provided a schematic of the barn itself.
Yes, and I do have a full certified survey of the property, and if you guys were out there, you could see there was stake lines noting the exact property line, and I also had stakes locating the future pole barn.
Was
Then when
that-
you get about half, you can see kind of, I cut a line there, because my property goes way back further than that, so they surveyed the front 2/3. But they did stake all 4 corners.
Is the existing shed's gonna be removed?
The existing shed still fits within the square footage for the property, 5 acres. And I'll be moving that probably, but right now, on the, I think the first variance on the 29-foot setback, that fits within that.
And that square footage still is permitted, Brian, in terms of all the accessory structures for a property this size?
Yeah, we'll check all the numbers again once he applies for permit, so he'll know.
Okay. And you've stated that because of that secondary drain field, which would be to the north edge of your property, essentially in that same location, at least according to this sketch. It shifts that property line, or the, I'm sorry, the location of the accessory structure to the south.
Correct.
And interestingly, if your lot was 200 foot, I guess you probably wouldn't need any variance at all. So it's really that narrow lot that's causing the need for this variance, plus the location of that drain field.
The neighbor to the north, is that a variance? Or is that grandfathered in?
Probably grandfathered in.
'Cause that looks like it's right on the line or 5 feet from it. Are you familiar with your neighbors? to the north?
The one to the north,
Yeah.
the steel barn there, that's
Yeah.
within, it's 10 feet.
10 feet?
I know that because we had that staked out there when they were out there.
10 foot onto their property.
Yes.
It's right here.
Oh, yeah, way back. Brian, did we get any correspondence from any neighbors or anybody in the public?
None on this case.
Any additional comments, gentlemen?
What, construction materials from the drawings, it looks like?
Yeah, it would be a steel barn,
Okay.
so I try to draw some ribs in there.
Yeah, I didn't
Make
know
it
if you were doing vertical board
No,
batten,
yeah, just the-
farmhouse type deal,
It
or?
would be a steel barn, steel roof.
Well, I think everyone's taking a crack at it, I will too. In the case number 23-019, Mr. Simlick, I move to grant 2 variances. The first, a 29-foot lot width variance from section 4.09D, and the second variance, a 35-foot side yard variance from section 5.06A, in order to construct a pole barn as presented at tonight's meeting at 9741 Ortonville Road, with the stipulation that the applicant provides a survey and ensures that the footings of the barn are no closer to the property line than this variance would allow, and obviously follows the conditions of the building department, and noting that the variance is unique to this property in the sense that it's less than the 200-foot wide, causing the need to provide a variance not only for the lot width, but also for the location of the barn.
And it's hardship,
And that becomes the hardship.
the septic field and
And,
topographic.
thank you, Ellen, and that the septic field, the reserve backup field for the septic field, because of site conditions and the width of the lot, is on the north side of the lot, causing the barn to shift towards the south side of the lot.
I'll support.
We have a motion and support. Brian, if we could have a roll call, please?
Mr. Zurich?
Yes.
Mr. Auger?
Yes.
Mr. Epping?
Yes.
Mr. Galley?
Yes.
Mr. Charles?
Yes.
Thank
Good
you,
luck.
gentlemen.
Thank you. We're getting out of breath here. In the case of 23-020, Victor Navarro, petitioner requesting an 8-foot front yard variance from section 4.06D in order to construct a new home at the northeast corner of Mann and Rattick Road, parcel 0835452-016, which is an R1A single-family residential. Good evening.
Good evening, guys.
How are you tonight?
Good, thanks. How are you guys?
Good. Can you tell us your name and your address, please?
My actual address or the lot?
Why don't we start with your actual address and then we'll go
Okay.
to the lot?
My address 2235. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous.
You're doing great.
2732 Bayberry Drive, Waterford.
Okay.
I'm here in regards 3250 Man Road,
Thank you.
empty lot. I'm in the process of purchasing this property, but before I finish the process of purchasing, I want to make sure I can fit the house that I wanted to. And for that, I need a 8-foot variance, like you guys mentioned it.
So it looks like it's a triangular piece of property, an
Yeah.
unusual shaped property.
Right.
You've provided a survey that shows the setbacks, and you've also provided architecture of a very nice home. And because the property is triangular and the home is rectangular, the front corner of it encroaches into that setback by about 8 foot. And
Yeah, the
so
back corner, right.
or the back corner of the house
Right.
towards the front of the lot. And so the request is to have a variance to allow that 8-foot corner to encroach.
Correct.
Is this the home that you're gonna build, or?
Yes, if I can get it approved, yes. If not, I'll have to see. I might not purchase it if I can fit the house. Just don't wanna, I wanna fit something that will fit the neighborhood, not a funny looking house that will be, long and narrow.
What's interesting to me is from Man Roads, and this is kind of in a lot of our lake type neighborhoods, the survey doesn't continue to show the right of way for Man Road, and as you move further east, for whatever reason, and Jim, you're an engineer, you might
The
know,
right of way is the south property line.
the right of way is the south
Yeah, it's a
property.
very unique
Yeah.
property line
So-
there.
It's
So
a
it's-
variable width right of way in that particular case.
Yeah, I see that, okay, that makes sense. So it's so if it was a more standard width right away, the lot would certainly be less triangular, I guess. I guess my point is that it's a little misleading from a typical situation. The distance of where the home is proposed and where the road is greater than maybe in a standard subdivision or county road situation. Do you agree with that, Jim?
Yeah, well, the road actually encroaches on the corner of the lot.
The Raddick Road?
Yes.
That's one of the things I wanna ask too, if that can be, corrected.
That's something
Or is
you
that
have
a
to take up
different-
with
is
the
that a
road
different
commission.
case?
Are these private roads?
I don't know.
Raddick is private.
Right, I guess, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Raddick's private.
Well, that carries with it some interesting situations, because the road commission will say it's private, we have no jurisdiction over it. And the question becomes who's gonna pay for it? I mean, I don't know if you have an association in that area that covers maintenance of the roads.
Right.
So in other words, this board doesn't have power to
To correct that issue.
We have
to
no
say where that
jurisdiction
road
over
is, and it sounds as though it's probably owned by your neighborhood, assuming there's an association. So you could speak with the neighbors, or if there is a homeowners association, they would have the ability to potentially change it, but it would cost money, and so it may be difficult to get agreement on relocating that road.
Correct.
What this board does, within our jurisdiction, within our power, is to consider your request of this 8-foot, so we'll look at that tonight.
Okay.
Brian, when was this, was split off some time ago, evidently. Was this done with township approval? Make this lot of record?
It must have been because, but it, I didn't go back and search the history, but it's been a long time because I believe the house in the middle on the aerial was the house for all the lots, and then they split it at some point. And you can see the right of way, as Jim was pointing out, how I think that's a 60-foot right of way for some reason there.
But it doesn't go anywhere.
I know, it doesn't.
It's a dead-end street.
Well, we're also dealing with 2 front setbacks, correct?
And it's on a corner.
We
You're
have a
right.
non-conforming lot, an irregular shaped lot, a private road lot that encroaches, and
this lot's been for sale for many years, and it's, Mr. Navarro's the first one to really have a legitimate plan to make it work.
I think the house plans look very, very nice. Do you have an idea on materials you're gonna use?
Obviously wood and, I'm gonna use as much brick as I can. So I'm a mason, so I'm gonna
Bricks,
Not-
brick skirt on the bottom
brick, yeah,
and siding?
all the way around the bottom.
Go
It
back
has
to
a
that
lot of-
one that shows the whole lot.
It has mostly siding, but I wanna use as much
Yeah,
brick
that
as I
one.
possibly can.
Great.
That's kinda interesting because, was it Raddick Street?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Raddick Street doesn't even get to Man Road.
No, it's dead end.
Yeah, like by the lot lines, it's
Yeah,
not.
and the road is on a lot to the south.
And I believe the reason that
Yeah, sure
is because it's at the jurisdictional boundary.
Is that the township line?
Yeah.
Yes.
that's township
Oh,
line.
boy, it makes it even more confusing.
That's why the solid line is there. That's the jurisdiction line.
I think you gotta just live with it the way it is. I guess you're gonna take,
Yeah, because the neighbor to the,
yeah,
in the
'cause
next township's never gonna grant it.
yeah, he's not gonna want that road
You-
pushed
you-
west.
You're talking about
The curve.
the curve,
Yeah.
right, so that's something I have to live with.
It
if
is
I-
what it is.
Right,
I
right.
think, yeah, underneath the circumstances, I don't see it working out.
Right,
To
right.
move that road west.
No, it's gonna
The
get,
neighbor to the south there is gonna, you're not gonna like that at all.
right, right.
The guy in Waterford might be encroached if the road came straight out.
Yeah, go right through his driveway. Well, let's look at what we are being asked to look at, and that's the setback issue. Let me see, is there anybody from the public who would like to speak on case number 623-020, Mr. Navarro requesting an 8-foot front yard variance? Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the board.
I'll make a motion in case number 23-020, to allow the petitioner the 8-foot front yard variance due to the fact that it's a existing lot of record. There's a private road on part of his lot. The terrain toward the back, towards the river. There's a lot of circumstances that this house will be a pure asset to the neighborhood, also from the architectural plans that he submitted.
I support that. Alan? Any discussion on the motion? Brian, if we could have a roll call, please?
Mr. Auger,
Yes.
Mr. Epping,
Yes.
Mr. Galley,
Yes.
Mr. Charles,
Yes.
and Mr. Zurich.
Yes.
Great, congratulations, good luck, Mr. Navarro. It looks like a beautiful home, and certainly from at least this description. Keep in mind that it is an 8-foot setback, but because of the triangle, just continue to work with the building department and with your architect. If for whatever reason your plans changed and the home became longer, you'd have to still respect that same setback, so.
Right.
But it looks like the home you're proposing will look nice there.
Thank you.
And your footings will have to be surveyed to make sure they're within this that we approved tonight.
Okay, great.
Through the building. Great, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. And gentlemen, in only an hour's time, we've made it through 6 cases, which maybe is more cases than we've had, and more single pole barns than we've had in a single night.
And especially on one road.
Especially on Road Road. Next item of business is item H, approval of the minutes. We've got in our packets regular minutes from September 6th, 2023.
I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of September 6, 2023 as submitted.
Support.
We have a motion and support. All in favor of approving September 6th minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Approved. With that, item I, discussion. With an open meeting, we have a discussion. Any discussion points? Seeing none, I will move to item J, motion to adjourn.
Or 7 o'clock.
That's 7 o'clock. Support? We are, I guess all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.